Welcome to Ida's video channel. In this video, I'll show you how to add path and structure labels in plan as well as in a profile view. I have already shown in some of my videos how to add labels in a profile view, but let me summarize everything. So first I will add the labels in plan. If you want to add the labels, you can either go to menu pipes, add pipe network labels, and use the very first option, add pipe network labels, because all other options are using the default style and we don't know what's the default style, so let's use the very first option. If you prefer ribbon, then go to ribbon annotate, add labels, and then pipe network, and again use the very first option, add pipe network labels. It will open a new window where you can specify the feature pipe network, whether you want to label the entire network in a plan or in a profile or in a section or single part in plan, profile, section. There is also an option to label spanning pipes in plan or in a profile. Let me use the entire network in plan. For the pipes, I want to display just diameter, and for the structures, I don't want to add anything because I don't want to label all the structures. I only want to label air valves, scour valves, reservoir, tank, but I don't want to label the vertical change in direction. I also want to label horizontal change in direction, but not the vertical change in direction. So let me not to label structures now, and I go to add, then I select the network, and it will add the labels everywhere. To make my drawing a little bit cleaner, I will turn off the chainage values. So let me go to edit label styles for the alignment. I go to import label set, no labels. So it is a little bit cleaner. And you can see there's an issue. If the pipe is straight, then everything looks correct. If the pipe is curved, it doesn't show the sign for diameter. How can I fix it? It seems like this is a Civil 3D bug, but luckily there is a fix. Select label, right click and go to edit label style. Then go to edit current selection. Go to layout tab. There is a diameter and class, but basically it displays just the diameter. Then select content, click on three-dot button. Delete %C, go to Format, Symbol, and add diameter. Now the diameter symbol is there. Click OK, and OK, and OK, and that will fix the labels. If you select the label, you can move the label along the pipe if you select diamond grip point, or you can move the label freely if you grab the rectangular grip point. And if you want to bring it back, you just click on a circular grip point and it reverts back to its default location. And if you want, you can also flip the label to the other side, like that. Let me add the labels to the structures. But as I mentioned, I don't want to add labels to all structures. So under the add labels, I will change the style for structures. I want to use a label in plan which displays the name. Then I go to ribbon home and I display tool space. Let me stretch it a bit. In the prospector, I go to pipe networks. I go to networks, bulk water, structures. Let me stretch it a bit. I will also move this grid a little bit to the left. And we have a status, name, description, and style. You can either sort by description or style, both should give you the same result, and then only select those styles that you want to label. So I will select these, then I right click and I go to select. You can see they are selected in the model space, and I need to change the label type to single part in plan because I want to label single part. I don't want to label pipes, but I will keep it as it is because I didn't select any pipe. But I want to label a structure in plan with a name. Let me click on add. And if I zoom in closer, you can see the structures are labeled. But I didn't select all the structure types I want to label. If I come in closer, you can see I don't want to label junctions, but I want to label the reservoirs, scar valves, and tanks. So I will use the same workflow. I will select those objects. Then I click on Add, and it will add the label to those objects. If you look at the label, it is aligned with the structure. So if I rotate structure, it will rotate with the structure. When it comes to the distance between the structure and the label, you can adjust it. You can have multiple labels for different structure types. Let me just show you how to modify, let's say, one for this air valve. I will select the label, and I can either make a copy of this label, or I can make a child of this label, or I can just modify this label. And to keep it very simple, I will just modify this label. So I go to Edit Label Style, then I go to Edit Current Selection. And for the layout, there is a structure text. There is an offset. I can make offset, let's say 3.5. It won't be sufficient for this structure type, but you can see that it moves. You can also select label and move it accordingly. So you can use the value which suits most of the structures, and then you can move them accordingly if needed. Like for the reservoir, if you want, you can go lower or higher. There are also some other options that you can create various labels for different structure styles, but for now I will leave it. Another option that I can show you is that some clients, they prefer the labels to be aligned with the view and not with the structures, which in some cases might look better. In other cases, it might cause some issues, because if the label is displayed on one viewport, it might look perfect, but in other viewport, it might overlap with some other labels because they rotate for each viewport. So let me select the label and right-click, and I go to Edit Label Style. Then again, I go to Edit Current Selection, but of course, you can create a child of the existing label, or you can create a copy of the label. But I'm going to modify the default one. Under the General, there is an option, the Behavior, where you have a orientation reference, and you can either use View, which means viewport, or you can use a world coordinate system, which means it is always aligned with the world coordinate system. If I use a world coordinate system, you see all the labels are horizontal. If I click OK, OK, all the labels are horizontal for structures. I didn't modify the pipes. Let me undo, because I personally don't like that, because then it is quite difficult to get all the labels right on the various viewports. So these are the labels in a plan, very briefly. Let's go to labels in a profile view. If I want to label only specific structures in a profile view, I don't know how to do it. You can either label all of them, or you need to select them. So unfortunately, I didn't find a workflow where you can filter only specific structures that you can label at once. But in that case, I would label probably entire network in a profile. For the pipes, I will use a diameter and slope. For the structures, I will use a profile name, and for the crossing pipes, nothing. Then I click on Add, and I will add the labels. Let me close this window for now. And if there are some nodes which I don't want to label, I can always delete those labels, which might be probably faster, because you might have more nodes that you want to label than the nodes you don't want to label. If the label is too high above the structure, you can adjust it. Select the label, right-click and go to Edit Label Style. Then click on a drop-down, Edit Current Selection. Then go to Layout, and you can specify offset. You can make it 10. OK, 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 and the structure label is lower. You can also flip the pipe label, as you can do in plan, or you can reset label or toggle it back. I will reset the label. And finally, for any label, what you can do, you can override label. So you can select label, right-click and go to Edit Label Text. And if you wish to, you can add some description. And hit Enter, and there will be name. So it appears like this. If you select that label, it shows you new option, Clear Label Text Override. If you don't want that override, you can just clear it, and it changes back to default value. And this is briefly about part and structure labels.